Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We're here live on Co-working Live with Red Worldwide, and I am Dr. Patience Jackson Rose, and we are in the part of the week where we have what we call Tech Thursdays. And so today on Tech Thursdays, we're going to be having the Entrepreneurship Edition, where we really deep dive into all things in the world of entrepreneurship from a tech perspective. And so with that said, Javon, can you give me an opportunity to start my slide sharing here so that everyone can just be brought up to speed and see where we are? I love Tech Thursdays because we have, sometimes hands-on where we're able to build out things and to have people participate in what it is that we're experiencing. And they're doing it on their end, we're doing it on our end, and it's just been very exciting. And we have some of those sessions coming up real soon. But today we really just want to, talk about, the ability to weigh our options and look at what building a successful business in today's technology-driven world is going to take. And so with that said, will you share the second slide, please? Okay, so we want to look at the importance of entrepreneurship. And while we're taking a look at this, I just want to say thank you to all of those who are in our Zoom studio. We are excited for you who continue to join with us on a daily basis. And I promise we're going somewhere, okay? We've been really building out a lot of things, and sometimes the team has had lots of work to get us there. And other times, they've just been, riding along with us and making sure that everything stays the way that it needs to be so that people have access. And that is so important, that you have a team that can do that. And so we're going to talk about, what it takes to be an entrepreneur and how your team, your tech, and your tools have to be put together to make sure that you are able to complete the mission. Well, the importance of entrepreneurship with regards to economic growth is really something that I want us to think about, because every business that exists here in America since the beginning of America was started by people who generally are here in America, So entrepreneurs drive innovation and create new jobs. Every new job that comes about has to come about from an endeavor, some type of activity, some commercial activity. And so when we're looking at the jobs that people have, we need to be looking at, okay, where did the job come from? Jobs fuel economic growth and prosperity in every country that is a country. And so when we are thinking about the way that things operate here in America, we've got to be looking at, what it is that it takes to create everything that we need to have so that our country functions the way that it needs to function. In some countries, that could be farming to, to fishing, to, building or construction of homes and buildings and things of that nature. And in other countries, it could be something even more simple than that, where things are still at the level of what we would call a third world country, where, they're still in the process of creating infrastructure. And so when we're looking at what has happened here, where we're located currently, although we have, different parts of our company that do operate in other countries, we're basically looking at what we're doing here in America right now. And the economic growth that happens here comes from somewhere. And entrepreneurs are the central driver in America for economic growth and prosperity. And so when you're looking at the part that you play, if you might be thinking about the fact that I don't even know how I fit, I want you to be looking at that you are a part of a huge landscape of people who are doing entrepreneurial endeavors. Even though your company may only have 1 or 2 employees, you fit somewhere in the landscape, and you want to understand that. And so when we start thinking about why do entrepreneurs exist, or why is entrepreneurship even a thing, is because of the problems that we solve. Entrepreneurs identify and address unmet needs, developing solutions that improve lives and solve societal challenges. Every time I think about the paperclip, and I used this for years, before the paperclip existed, there was a problem that needed to be solved. And someone said, by putting, some metal together in such a way where we, construe it and fold it, or, bend it, we're able to come up with a small device, a technology that will hold things together. And so when you're thinking about what problems that you solve as a company, you got to be thinking about the fact that entrepreneurship would not exist unless there would be a person that could solve a problem for someone else or for themselves. Because generally, when I'm thinking about the problems that we solve, I solved the problems for myself before I realized that other people had the same problem, and went into a whole business that was designed to solve problems for other people the way I had initially solved problems for myself. So think about that, because it's really important. And then the other thing, the social impact. Entrepreneurs often create businesses with a social mission, contributing to the positive change in communities around the world. We, a lot of times we'll think about nonprofits in this way, and, about the societal impact that a nonprofit has. But for-profits have societal impact as well. And so if you are an entrepreneur, you could be an entrepreneur that started a nonprofit organization, and that is wonderful. If your mission, and your vision and your values came together, and you decided that you would go out and, help the world or serve the world. But you could also be a for-profit entity whose design was to go out and serve the world, just in a different capacity and in a different way. And it might be mutually beneficial for you, as opposed to it being a public mission or an exempt purpose as a nonprofit would have. So as we're looking at the social impact that we have in our businesses, you do want to be thinking about the problem that you solve, but you also want to be thinking about the societal mission that you have. How do you fit in the landscape of everything else, in the ecosystem of all things business? Where do you land? Okay. And then as far as personal growth, I want to be, very, very clear with you that the entrepreneurial journey fosters resilience. It makes you resilient. I'm so serious, and I wish I could tell you something different. No, I don't. I wish I could tell you something different, because that means it's growth. Resilience, emits the concept of the fact that you went through something, and as a result of going through something, you grew, you adapted, and you became stronger than you were before. And so when people are on their entrepreneurial journey, when they're doing their, as we used to say, when they're getting their hustle on, they have the ability to come into a position of ownership of the growth that they've made. It's not just about you creating a company that serves people and you're helping others, but you don't get help. A funnel cannot be a funnel without getting wet. Something is going into that funnel, and it's going all the way through, and it's going into a glass, a cup, a jar, or something. And as it's doing so, the funnel itself is interacting with whatever it is that's inside of it. And at some point, it does get wet, or if it's dry goods, it receives the dry goods, and there is a residue. So understand that, the personal growth that you experience because of, going through different things as an entrepreneur does create for you the ability to grow. And growth is expected. It's a part of, a personal development that you should expect to experience as an entrepreneur. Next slide, please. Okay. So what are the challenges that entrepreneurs face? Well, One of the challenges that entrepreneurs face is funding. Securing sufficient funding to launch and grow a business is often a major hurdle. We find that people many times, are in a position to start a company and they bootstrap. And just in case you don't know what bootstrapping is, in other words, you use your own money, okay, to get started. It could be your money from your retirement. It could be money from your 401k or IRA or insurance policies. It could be money that you had, set aside for something, and you decided that you would use that to start a business to create more money so that you would have more to work with. However you got started as a bootstrapper, it came from your coffers, something that you have access to that is yours, that you own. And so many entrepreneurs start in that way. I don't remember the statistics right at this moment, but I will tell you that there are some tremendous statistics to support the amount of bootstrappers out there. There's a ton of us, okay? And for all the companies that I have ever been involved in, I have to tell you that because I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I've been involved in several company startups. Business startups is not something that is that I am a novice to, or at, but I will say this, that about 9 out of 10 of them were started with my own money. Okay. And or monies that were in my family, if I can use that as, to say it's a portion of it is mine because it was in my family. So I want to also tell you that when people get access to funding, sometimes, it helps them to get started. But at some point, growth at any level is going to require more access to funds. And so with that said, you have to have, a good revenue performance, financial performance, in order for you to be in a position where you can really take advantage of the company's, having a good solid start and a good, mature, growth. Okay. And so I want you to be aware of the fact that you got to be thinking about a budget ahead of time. You have to know where your money is going to come from, or at least have some idea of what you're going to do. It is never a wise decision for you to jump into business without taking into account, some of these things, because these things are extremely important, and it could, be the cause of some great challenges. I mean, if you start a business and you're not in a position where the company is doing well, and you've hired on employees and the employees don't have access to the funding necessary for them to keep their jobs, okay, because if you don't have access to it, then the employees are not going to have access to it. If you can't pay payroll or meet the budget to make the payments to your contractors, it could create a problem. And so you want to be thinking about, always, how do I secure the necessary amount of funding? How do I make sure that funds are constantly coming in? How do I have a growth trajectory or a growth potential that will allow for the company to stay in the market and do what it needs to do? It's important for you to understand that the market is highly competitive, and it requires entrepreneurs to differentiate their offerings so that they can stand out. Being in a sea of a ton of companies that is just like yours could have an effect on the amount of funds that you're able to bring in. So as we're looking at this from a technologically, rich standpoint, you've got to be able to make sure that the company has, again, the tech, the tools, the time, and the talent, to be able to make it so that you are competing in the marketplace in a way that will allow you the ability to make sure that you have funding to sustain the company, and that you are able to stay, in your industry at a high level, having some amount of the market share. And then time management is really cool. It's when you are able to make sure that you are taking a look at what is available to you and balancing the responsibilities. And, I have to say this because a lot of people, don't necessarily agree with the concept of time management. They have other things that they call it. But at the end of the day, balancing your responsibilities from operations to marketing is going to be important. Okay. I used to tell people that I can multitask and all of these things, but you got to make sure that you are aware that when you have a company, the sharing time with other responsibilities can really be damaging if it is, something that you literally are having to take from one company to give to the other. We are in a situation where we're having to run multiple responsibilities, and sometimes things will suffer if we're not careful. And so managing in your time, mitigating anything that is off, if it's something that is getting more time than it should or costing more time than it should, make sure you're paying attention to that, because what you got to know is that you don't ever know how much time you have until it's gone. And so it's important for you to be in a position where everything you do is done well, and it's organized, and you've counted the cost. You set things up and you have positioned things so that you are effectively managing and, the time and mitigating anything that is awry or that could go awry. Okay, next slide, please. So how do we leverage technology for our business growth? What do we do, to take advantage of some of the tech that is out there that really can help us to become better at what we do? Well, one of the things that we can do is, take a look at how we can use digital methods for marketing and having, are giving us access to a wider audience or more people, and how can we automate our sales processes? We've talked about marketing and sales on from a couple of different angles. And today, the way we're reaching out to you to talk about it has more to do with it being a part of our total technology stack. Okay, if we could say it that way, so that means that, we're looking at, the use of the digital marketing tools, all of our socials, TikTok, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or Meta, the metaverse, okay, and X. All of these ways that we can get to people, and reach people that we might not otherwise see in our little offices. We may not see or be able to see but a certain amount of persons a day, because we don't have the time. Remember, we talked about time management. We don't have the time in the day to see more than, 10 people. So, and in some cases, we're doing webinars, or, we might have a couple of people in masterminds or whatever, so we're able to see a few more people at once. But at the end of the day, when you really look at this from the perspective that we need to see it, you've got to understand that your marketing and your sales relationships, and your ability to automate your processes really are dependent on your tools. Okay. And so, the tools and the tech that you use, should make it so that you can get to more people, in the same amount of time that it would have only, without those tools, it might have taken you months, to reach. I will say this: when I had the opportunity to be on Blog Talk Radio years ago, and I was able to go back into the analytics and see that I had a reach where I was reaching people in other countries. I had, people way in China that were listening to me and watching, what we were doing, and I was so excited about that, because I was like, man, they're listening to us. They're going to our website. We could see, because I had a website at the time that could pick up those analytics. We could see where people were coming to us from Japan and China and Philippines. And I'm like, man, what is it that we're talking about that is interesting enough for them to weigh in or jump in? On our Thursdays, we have what we call VIBE, Valued in Business, Valued Interaction and Business Exchange. And when we would have those episodes on the radio, it was funny because people could call in and they could ask questions, or they could send us a message so that we would know what their questions were and have the ability to answer them, in the show. And so it was something to see that, we had people who were really interested in a lot of the things that were going on at that time, because this is years ago now. I mean, well over, I want to say when we started, it is almost 20 years ago. And having the ability to get the answers to their questions, do the research, and show up at the show with the answers, and have people be there on the other end, listening for their answer to their question, that really meant a lot. And so, I will say that having the ability to use the tools, and the tech to widen your audience and to gain access to people that you wouldn't otherwise have access to is going to be huge. And then having the ability to, once you get those people, involved in what you're doing, manage the relationships. I mean, stay involved in, through your customer relationship management systems, manage the interactions and personalize those experiences. That's going to be big, because what now happens is that they are able to, say that they followed up with me, or they, had something that I could use to position myself better in the marketplace, or, all of those things are really important to customers and our potential customers. So you want to make sure that you're putting yourself in the position so that you can, be there for the customer. And then the data analytics, we've talked about business intelligence a lot, and we've spoken, to the fact that you really want to be able to leverage the data, to gain insights into the customer's behavior, having the ability to look at the consumer behavior and go back and tweak things, optimize your strategy and make more informed decisions about how you're going to perform your business, so that you can reach out to all of the customers that you have the desire to serve. That's big, again, because it makes it such that you can increase your financial performance. You can better, or improve your growth potential and your growth trajectory. Even it makes it so you can stay in business as with your unique value that you offer, and people will choose you over others. Okay, next slide, please. So what are some of the insights we have, from successful entrepreneurs? Okay, what are entrepreneurs saying? Well, one of the things that entrepreneurs are telling me is that you got to stay persistent. You got to be prepared for setbacks and challenges, but you got to push forward despite the obstacles, or what might appear as an obstacle. I've said many times that things that sometimes look like an obstacle turn out to be something very different than that. And so if you don't stay in the game, you won't know, okay, that this is the case. So you have to be able to be prepared for the setbacks and the challenges, but even though they may show up, even though obstacles may appear, you have to know that they are appearances. They may not be real. And so sometimes we have things that are threats, and sometimes we have things that are really risks. But again, if you stay in the game, stay persistent, you can make choices. You can choose to, pivot and go to something that is a relatable, or might even be a complementary service offering that you can, jump into, because maybe what you're doing is being rooted out of the marketplace because of technology or some type of law or other issue that might present itself that could, stop you from doing the same thing, for over time. But you could also persevere, just hang in there, and the market could course correct, and something that was a thing that was not a thing can become a thing again. Okay. And so from my own experience, I can tell you that there have been many times when, it was expected that something that we were doing was going to not be needed anymore because of technology. AI, had promises of taking away a lot of, opportunities for people, when really what ended up happening is it gave more opportunities than it took away. And so I will tell you that just stay in there. If you could just stay in there and persevere through some of those challenging times, you will find that many times, you didn't have to close the doors. You just needed to reinvent or iterate on top of what you were already doing, or reiterate what you were doing, so that people knew that you were actually still available in the market. Then you have to remain adaptable. People are saying, okay, and I love to use this because I have some Gen Xers in my that I birthed, okay, and they're telling me that people are saying, okay, that you got to stay adaptable, stay flexible and willing to adjust your approach as needed, based on the market trends and feedback. There's sometimes what you're doing is, the right thing, but it may need to, be done at a different time of day or in a different location, so being adaptable gives you these options to, move, and be fluid with the marketplace. And then lastly, you gotta have passion. No matter what you're doing, you have to remain passionate about it. Some people start off and they are just excited and they are moving and shaking and everything is going the way that they think it's supposed to be going. And then all of a sudden, they hit a roadblock, or, they hit a slump, or things get hard, or it feels like it's too much work. They don't have enough help. All these things come to bear. And as a result of it, they start, to reduce their level of engagement. They become a lot less passionate about what they're doing, and their business suffers as a result of it. So what am I saying? I am saying that you have to build a business around something you are passionate about. And if you do, it will fuel your motivation and drive, and it'll keep you excited. And if you find that your motivation is waning, or your passion is not what it used to be, take a break. Okay, you can do certain things to, not necessarily take a break from doing business, but remove yourself, from the forefront long enough for you to become rejuvenated, because sometimes you just need a nap. I'm just being honest. Sometimes you need a nap. And so having the ability to refresh yourself and revive yourself, can breathe life back into your company and give you the ability to come back in there, strong and, more passionate than maybe you were before. Okay, next slide, please. So what are some of our productivity tools that we can use as entrepreneurs? Well, I like calendar management, and, there are a lot of people who, and so I'm going to tell you now, these tools didn't necessarily come all from my toolbox. I'm going to share with you what others are sharing and what they are using, what hit the top of the list, if I can say it that way. Then I'll tell you what I'm using, okay? I'll do that. But for calendar management, many people use Google Calendar, because tools like Google Calendar help entrepreneurs schedule meetings, track deadlines, and stay organized, and it is free. Okay, so when I'm seeing people that are using it, one of the main reasons why they use it is because it's free, and they can have access to it, and have some of the best management options, from utilizing Google Calendar. People can actually schedule on their calendar. If they share calendars with others, they can make sure that certain things are blocked out. And so there are lots of reasons why people use Google Calendar. Now, personally, I'm an Outlook girl. And so I'm just saying that in terms of the truth for me is always going to be Outlook. And we use other calendar scheduling tools, which are different than calendar management. So let me just be really clear so you understand that scheduling tools are not calendar management. Scheduling tools are for scheduling. And yes, the scheduling tool might also have a calendar, but generally speaking, the calendar management needs to be in your own hands, meaning that, utilizing an email domain that you control, you have access to using, your email as the way of gaining access to an account that is connected to a calendar that can be kept up on your computer, your phone, your tablet, or other appliance that you might be utilizing. Like even, you can use it with, Alexa, and other types of tools, or tech like that. So calendar management has to do with you being able to have a particular calendar that others can schedule on, that you can keep up with, having the ability to mark things off or to, block out time on your calendar so that if you're using a scheduling tool, people cannot schedule on the dates that are blocked out. Having the ability to share time with others on the calendar, where maybe if you're all in a team at work, you guys all have the same items on that calendar for those specific days, because for your company's calendar management using its own email domain, now every person has an email account, and that calendar management is collectively a part of what happens at your company. That calendar management can also receive other calendars connected to it. It could have, the ability to go cross-platform, meaning that you can use your Outlook calendar with things that are in your iCloud. You can use your iCloud calendar with what's in your Google, or you can have one calendar that is the truth, and everything can fall on the calendar that's the truth. I call the truth, again, in my life is Outlook, but you might be using a different platform. And so with that said, you may need to sync your calendars so that it can retain its management process for everything that you're using. Now, for scheduling purposes, totally different. I'm a Calendly girl, okay? So I don't use Google Calendar or Outlook for scheduling. I schedule on Calendly most frequently. I allow my clients to schedule on Calendly. I schedule them on Calendly if I'm handling the scheduling. But I have a scheduler, and they actually schedule things using Calendly, not Outlook. And there's a reason for that, and that's because that gives a level of control for lots of things. Because if we're using Calendly, we have access to being able to collect information, to actually do a form that will allow us to gain knowledge of what it is that a person wants to work on when we're doing a session. We have the ability to, within Calendly, embed our Calendly assets, whether it be my entire schedule or just specific schedules for certain types of things, onto the websites that we use, in our apps, and even inside of our email, provider, our email, not provider, but our email client. And so I will say to you that for me, Calendly has been my go-to because I absolutely love Calendly's ecosystem. And I love what it is that, the creator of Calendly has done with the platform over time. It has grown tremendously, and every year they're constantly, upgrading it to add new tools and things that makes it a lot easier for a person who is working with a small team to use. Now, other people use lots of other tools. Some people have a coordinated way that they do their scheduling, because they may be using Salesforce or Asana or some other program, that will allow them to project manage. And the calendar itself is the guiding, force in terms of, where people can see everything that's on the calendar. But the scheduling tools are inside of their CRM or HRM or other type of, management tool. So, whatever it is that you're using, I just say this, that you need to have your calendar set up in such a way that you know which calendar is the truth. It's the one that always tells the truth, no matter what everybody else is doing, how they're scheduling. That one calendar is going to always be in, sync, and everything else needs to be in sync with it. And your scheduling tool needs to use that calendar as the truth, so that it will not allow people to, block out time, or for that matter, because sometimes you have people that are working on your schedule, they won't be able to block out time that's already being used for something that it shouldn't, or they will be able to block time that needs to be blocked. And so it's not just about the blocking of time as much as it is about the management, but I'm just saying that using that as an example, it's important that those two things are, that you have the calendar set up first and it becomes the truth, and then your scheduling tool fits seamlessly inside of that. Okay, so for task management, there are lots of platforms. There's Asana, there's Trello, there's Slack has a component, for task management, and I will tell you that we have used a plethora of task management apps and platforms, and I liked Asana when we used Asana. It was okay. I liked initially. I really did like Microsoft Projects. It really did well for me in my initial stages of business. However, because we're growing and things are happening, I am currently looking again for a tool and trying to decide whether we are going to, build out our own, or if we could find that tool that we can use. We are using Clio right now for most of everything that we do, which is a legal task management and CRM. It's an all-in-one platform that allows us to do a lot of different things, and it does really help. We also use some of the features inside of the QuickBooks ecosystem, into an ecosystem, for some of our task management on the side of our, tax and tax advisory, business advisory, and virtual CFO management services. And so because we have two different companies that do two very different things, we have to have two different kinds of platforms. But we are, like I said, we are still looking, because, I find that, many times I am in a situation where, because we are growing to a certain position and we found that the tool that we were using was kind of working, but then there were things that were brought out and we realized that, we still have a little ways to go. We'll find something and we'll try it out to see if it can take up the slack. I am almost, 80% on us building out our own tool within the next 2 years, because I think that, the level of growth that we're having is going to dictate that we have to have something that's more customized for our own use. And because we just have so many things that we do and that are very different from what the softwares that we are using right now are designed to do. And so when you find yourself in that situation, you need to start shopping. And I'm just being honest, and look at whatever's out there. Get on YouTube University, talk to other people in your field, see what they're using. Don't be, shy about doing a trial, to, doing a demo, finding out what is going to work for you, because task management is important. And if you're not able to track the task and know where everybody's supposed to be, on a particular thing, then you could lose time and money. It can affect your bottom line, and you can end up in a situation where you are spending way more time to complete a task than you should. All right. So what about note taking? Well, this is a huge one, and I'm going to talk about what everybody else is doing, then I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. Okay. So apps like Evernote, that's where I started. That's where a lot of people still are today, have been around for a while, and Evernote has been the go-to for a lot of people. Let me just say this. I was very enamored with Evernote for many, many years, because it was cross-platform. Back in the day, before there was even a smartphone, Evernote was out there on PDAs. And so the personal data assistants, for those of you who are too young to know anything about that, it was our smartphone. Before there was ever a smartphone, there were appliances, technological appliances that looked a lot like the smartphone does right now, that we had apps on, and we used those at the time, for word processing and spreadsheets and all of that kind of thing in our hand. And I had promised that on one of these Tech News Thursdays I was going to bring one to show you, because I still have one that I am keeping, that I know is probably worth a lot of money at this point, because of how old it is and the fact that it still works and the battery still works. Okay. And so I'm just holding on to it just so that I can, have it to share. I don't know, with my grandkids or my great grandkids. I'm not sure, and others to see how much technology has grown over time. But having the ability to take notes on the fly is huge. And I will say to you that, Evernote was all the rage for many, many years. When the company changed hands and there were a lot of things that began to be done differently, our needs changed. We started moving in the direction of looking for other types of note-taking apps. And so Notion is a very, very good software to use. A lot of people are using it. It's cross-platform. They use it on their phone, on the web, because there's a browser version on all things tablets. And there's a whole Notion community. It's cult-like in its effect, just like Apple. And I will tell you that people who use Notion, use it for a lot of things. Okay, so just saying. Go back, please. Thank you. Okay, so when you're looking at Notion, you got to understand that it is there's a learning curve, and I personally haven't had the time to really dive into it the way that I want, which is, even though I own it, I don't have the time to use it just yet. But I do believe that there is a use for it in our ecosystem, and we will, make it a part of our infrastructure of technology at some point. However, our go-to right now, has been the Notes app from Apple, because once Apple introduced the ability for us to lock down notes, where, we actually could, make sure that others could not gain access to the notes. And when the notebooks, became even more, I would say, appealing, the way that they're set up, having tags and all kinds of things, and even the newer software additions that they've done with the 18, the operating system 18. Oh man, this is a game changer. I've just really, because I'm a developer, on Apple side, I have access to the betas, and I've been using the beta. And I tell you, having some of the things that are available inside of Notes right now has me at a place where I'm at a quandary, because my favorite note-taking app of all time has been NoteShelf, and NoteShelf 3 is my number one go-to for taking notes for school, and all things business. Ideas. I've done so many things in NoteShelf. I've created all kinds of taking opportunities for other people, journals and planners, all kinds of things. But what I'm finding is simplicity for me is becoming a big deal. So I am backing out of some of the tools that I've been using tech-wise and opting in to using some things that are more simple, because I don't have the time to, when I need to get in there, I need to get in there. I don't have the time to wait for something to load and then have to go and find things. I want to be able to, what I'm able to do right now with Notes is I take my Apple Pencil, touch my screen, and Notes pops up. And now I can immediately begin to either talk the note through and have it transcribe for me what I am saying into a note that is big. And, and I don't have to pay anything extra for that service. Okay. So that is something that has caused me to cancel some subscriptions. Otter's not getting my money anymore, because I can actually open up a note while I'm in a meeting and have that note transcribing my entire meeting. And no, it doesn't, give me the ability to identify the different voices. But if it's the right kind of meeting, I don't need all of that. So I'm using, for note taking, right now, my number one tool is going to be Notes by Apple. My second tool is going to be Note Shelf 3. And then when I'm in my Zoom meetings, I use Fathom. Someone asked me this earlier today. What is my, after I have evaluated all of these different systems, I've evaluated Otter, I've evaluated Read, I've evaluated, about 3 or 4 other note-taking AI type apps for taking meeting notes, and my number one go-to in that respect is going to be Fathom, FATHOM.ai, and you can gain access to it inside of Zoom by going to the apps section and clicking on it, and you can get a free trial so you can try it yourself. And no, I'm not a person that tries these things out for companies because of the fact they send it to me. I'm really using it, and it is really working for me. Okay, and the way I use it is when we're in a meeting, it's taking the notes. When we're done with the meeting, I go to create a summary of the meeting. I send the summary of the meeting to, depending on the client that it is that I'm meeting with, I will send them the summary of the meeting. They will also give them timestamps so they can go back and, find certain things that have happened in the meeting, and, click on it and open it up and listen and, and read, the transcript. So they can, be informed about what we discussed again, and see what the action items are, and so there are ways that the summaries can be curated based on what your, end result is. And what I like about the way that the system works is if I'm teaching a class, then I can actually have it give me the summary that I need for that particular type of session. Whereas if I'm in a meeting and it's a sales call, then I can have it, give me the summary based on that particular type of meeting. And if I'm in a webinar, I can have it give me the summary for the webinar. So it's a very useful tool in that it is flexible based on your end use of your meetings. And then lastly, for email management, okay, and this is something that you got to be thinking about, because of course your email management and if you're in the Apple ecosystem, your email management, your task management, your note taking, and your calendar can all be connected, because you have the Reminders app that you can use, inside of the Apple ecosystem. And now Reminders just got a new facelift. And so you can use it for task management in many different ways. You can make it really work for you for, depending on the types of tasks that you're doing. You can create an entire system around the Reminders app and the note-taking app. And so, with that said, you could get all 4 of these things right inside of the Apple ecosystem if you're using Apple. You can also do the same if you're using a PC and a Windows-based operating system with the, Microsoft, products, because they have OneNote, they have, for, the note taking, they've got the task management that you can take advantage of with Microsoft projects, and, some of the other Microsoft products that, are working very, very well right now for task management. Then of course you have Outlook, as the calendar, and Outlook does cover both calendar and email management. And so email clients like Gmail and Outlook offer features, that, give you the ability to filter your emails, to put them in folders, to actually have emails forwarded automatically to people that need to also be a part of an email chain that might be going on. It allows you the ability to schedule right there, from the software. If you're using Teams, Microsoft Teams, you could, have your Outlook connected in such a way that you can schedule your Teams meetings from Outlook, as well as your Zoom meetings from Outlook, and even your WebEx meetings, depending on, if WebEx is being used inside of Teams. Now in Gmail, you have Google Meet, and so you can utilize the same types of tools, but just inside of the Google operating system, so whether it's, Google Meet and Gmail, alongside of Google Calendar, and the Google Drive for storage, and task management. If you're using what used to be called G Suite or Workspace, you have some options there as well. Okay, so it just really depends on which direction you want to go, whether you're going to go with Google or Outlook or iCloud. You have all the tools that you need, because with iCloud, of course, the mail client has gotten an upgrade. And so you have a lot of really good options there. You've got iCloud for storage. And then, of course, we have the Notes app and the Reminders app. And, you can do a lot with the calendar and the task management, in the iCloud ecosystem as well. Again, what am I doing? Well, I mentioned earlier that I'm using Outlook, and Outlook is the truth for me in terms of scheduling, because I'm able to, add my domains to my Outlook account. And although I do have a lot of my domains over on Google, I am using most of the scheduling features inside of and the calendar features inside of the Outlook ecosystem. And it does help that we got a grant from Microsoft that makes it, worth our while to use all of their best tools for free. So just saying that did have an effect, but we still are not 100% in the Microsoft ecosystem, because we do very much I don't use OneNote at all. And I am using, almost everything Apple with regards to, the note-taking side of things. Okay. Now, let me just say this, okay, because I really want to tell you this. You use what you are comfortable with. You need to make sure that you are taking the time to play with these softwares to find out what works well for you. Use it long enough for you to see if it's going to meet your criteria. And you need to have a criteria. So you got to start by writing down what you need, and what you're expecting and what you would like to have. I have my must-haves. I have my like to have. Okay. And, then I have that's not the things that are just not that big of a deal. So I don't have to have those things, they're okay. But by me parsing things in that way and putting my must-haves over here and my like-to-haves, on the other side of those, and my, the essential things that, I just feel like, okay, they're okay, but they're not what I'm making or staking my life on, okay, in terms of software. And by doing that, then you get to really pick what works for you. Okay. Last slide, please. So we want to talk about some funding opportunities for startups, because I think that you need to be aware that when you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to make sure that you are, again, using tech to your advantage. And so there are ways that you can use tech to find money. Okay. And when you want to fund opportunities, in your startup, you might want to start by looking at well, again, you need to, put down your list. What are you willing to accept in funding? For me, I wasn't willing to share, anything in my for-profit with anyone. So it was going to be a bootstrap process for us, which meant that it may be a longer, path to start, because we had to raise the money ourselves out of whatever it is that we had available to raise the money, from, so that we could get started. But some people are willing to do the angel investors. And if they are, these angel investors are individual investors who provide funding in exchange for equity in early stage companies. So giving them a little, 5%, 10%, or sometimes 20 or 25% of your company will give you access to their money. And that gives you the ability to, get started, sometimes in a way that gets you a faster path, to the market. Okay. And then there are venture capital firms. These are professional investors that invest in high growth companies with significant potential for return on investment. And I did a whole session, talking about, would you be willing, and why you might be willing to accept this kind of money. Okay. But what you also need to be aware of in doing this. And I'm going to do another session on that because I don't think it's in our current co-working lineup, but I think it's important for us to, maybe dive back in maybe on our Smarter Start Bootcamp Day, where we will, just talk a little bit more about angel investors and venture capital and what might be the best of both worlds, because there are some options, that could, include using both at some point. All right. And then there's crowdfunding platforms. And I tend to favor crowdfunding for a lot of reasons. We have clients that, are actually creating products, and crowdfunding has been a very good way for them to get money to get their product to market. There are other ways that we help them to get products to market, but crowdfunding has been a really good way to, make sure that funds were available, for them to get to market faster. And so online platforms like, GoFundMe, there are some tech crowdfunding platforms. There's Kickstarter. There's, a few of them out there. So, take some time to kind of look and see, do a search for crowdfunding platforms to see, because there's some that are specific to a different, each different kind of business that you might have. Online platforms that allow entrepreneurs to raise money from a large number of individuals. Sometimes people just give the money and they want to see you successful without anything in return. Other times you might, offer something, whether it's like if you have a product that you're bringing to market, maybe you give them, your alpha, product that you're putting out so that you can get feedback, or maybe, you promise them, a discount, on the product when it launches. There are lots of things that people do with the crowdfunding platforms that make it worth the while of the person who's giving the money to get involved. And then there are government grants. I love government grants. I've written quite a few and had some funded. Financial assistance provided by the government is 100% way to go if you have the ability to make sure that you can manage the grant. Okay. There are so many agencies that will, provide support to for-profit and nonprofit businesses and individuals. So, there was a time where we watched a gentleman get, $500,000 to, take a year off and write a book based on the book he wrote before, and everybody was really interested in getting the new book out there. People, were weighing in, but he was able to get a government grant that actually allowed him the rest of the money he needed to take the year off and do what he needed to do to get his new book out. So I am saying to you that government grants are out there, and they're there for lots of reasons. And so we want you to take advantage of that, because it is something that is a powerful way for you to be able to begin to do business. And so my final thoughts, and so I do have one more slide for final thoughts, but my final thoughts are that, we've really explored a wealth of knowledge and information today, with regards to entrepreneurship. And I really want you to get ready to participate in an interactive session, because we are going to do something interactive next week that will allow you to apply the things that we've learned today to your entrepreneurial path. So come ready, because bring your ideas, bring your concepts, and if you don't have the opportunity to be in the Zoom session or in our Zoom studio when we do it, you'll catch it later online. But I really want you to be able to have, the ability to participate. And so we're going to, you don't have to bring anything but yourself and your ideas. And when you come, we're going to walk through how do we, get started, and what is it that we can do. So we're going to create something next week so we can show you a process that you can use to create a product, a service, or a business that actually you can take to market, for real. Okay. And I want you to participate in this process, because I think it's going to be fun, and you're going to enjoy, the options that you might have, in learning how to creatively bring something to market. Well, this has been Dr. Patience Jackson Rose, and we have been here with Co-working Live for Red Worldwide, and we are excited that you joined with us, and we hope to see you again next time.